In our eyes, Breece Hall has become one of the biggest sells in Dynasty fantasy football. And it has nothing to do with Breece Hall, the player, because we love Breece Hall, the player. You could go back 8 months and find us raving about Breece Hall before he came back from his injury, saying, look at what he did his rookie year. Look at what he did when he's healthy. We love Breece Hall. Breece Hall, great NFL talent. Yes, played behind one of the worst offensive lines in one of the worst offenses, period, ever. We totally understand that. It has nothing to do with Breece Hall or his capabilities, because Breece Hall is a fairly capable and also elite NFL running back. We totally believe that, and we know it to be true. And it's not like he's not going to produce in Dynasty. It's all about price. We do not hate the player. We hate the price. We do not like Breece Hall's price right now just based on what you can get in return. So it's not necessarily like, oh, Breece Hall's not good enough to maintain this. It's you can get more insulated value right now, move off of a running back that's creeped up now to the early second round, and still get as much production and probably long-term value insulation. So in our eyes, that's a good move. Again, nothing to do with Breece Hall, the player. We know the situation. He performed very well in light of what the situation was in New York. But in our eyes, he's still a sell. We're playing smart Dynasty here, so we're not going to act like we can't sell guys that performed well. We can't sell guys that are on the comeback or, a sexy name or whatever, because Breece Hall right now is the running back 2 in Dynasty fantasy football. And when you're talking about down tiering, especially at this point in the season where 25 firsts aren't super valuable yet, 24 firsts, either people love them or people hate them, down tiering is a fairly good move at this point in the offseason. Gives you some value insulation, but he's valued right now above Jahmyr Gibbs. And I don't really think I can defend that. We were dead wrong about Jahmyr Gibbs from the standpoint that we were freaking out 4 weeks into the season about Jahmyr Gibbs and his dynasty value.
When we were raving about him before.
Right. Yeah, we totally jumped ship too soon. We got emotional. We were totally wrong. But right now, after what I've seen, Jahmyr Gibbs is my dynasty running back 1.
Yeah.
And he's the dynasty running back 3 on Keep Trade Cut behind Bijan Robinson and Breece Hall. And I get it. Like Bijan, one of the better running back prospects to come out ever. I mean, you're talking about Jahmyr Gibbs being drafted within 10 picks of Bijan. Okay. So it's not like there's that much of a considerable gap between Jahmyr Gibbs and Bijan. And then Breece Hall, Jahmyr Gibbs got significantly better draft capital, but also from a production standpoint this year, Jahmyr Gibbs was plenty good going up against Breece Hall. So what are some kind of deals that we're looking for when you're talking about Breece Hall? Not only down tiering, but looking at other positions around Breece Hall and then guys that we just are more comfortable with in that value range.
Yeah, we're big proponents of the second round in Dynasty startups carrying a lot of valuable assets, and we're not real hype on you getting a running back in that range in general because there's so many solid cornerstone wide receivers that you could get there. So, if you're just looking at cornerstone wide receivers and even quarterbacks alone, why not get a Kyler Murray in a super flex league? Right? Why not get a Chris Olave like almost a half to a full round later after Breece Hall? Why not go get him? Garrett Wilson, his teammate, is technically less valuable than Breece Hall. Why not go get one of those guys in down tier? Why not go get Jonathan Taylor multiple rounds later, who has, in my opinion, not just in my opinion, he objectively has he has a more secure future than Breece Hall does long term because of his contract.
And you can look at the team situation and be like, yeah, obviously the team situation doesn't matter. It super does.
It absolutely does.
It does matter.
And with Breece Hall, you will not ever see us really come onto this show, at least in the near future, and question the talent of Breece Hall, like we've already said time and time again. But another thing that we've talked about very often here on this channel is the value of quarterbacks in superflex leagues and how it's going up and up and up and up. And all of these new quarterback contracts that are happening in the NFL with this new market value of that position in the NFL, like you're getting to a point where you're going to see 10 of the 12 assets going in the first round of Dynasty startups quarterbacks, and then the other 2 are going to be the best 2 wide receivers, right? So Justin Jefferson and Jamar Chase right now. Justin Jefferson, CeeDee Lamb, however you look at it. Do I really see any time in the future, as more and more quarterbacks are getting contract extensions that are concurrent with the current value of NFL QBs, do I ever see a world where Breece Hall increases in value from what his respective price is right now, which is early to mid second round of a dynasty startup, jumping those quarterbacks and jumping those top wide receivers? No. I never see it happening. And when you're playing dynasty fantasy football, yes, you want to win your leagues, you want to score more points than your opponents, but it's also a game of value. And when you look at Breece Hall and his value, this is his value ceiling. Because even if he ends up being running back 1 and blows the socks off of everyone and their expectations in 2024,
He's not going to hire
guess
them
what
than
happens
late
going
first.
into 2025? Questions arise of his future. Questions arise with the New York Jets offense and the volatility at the quarterback position because Aaron Rodgers is going to be Aaron Rodgers. Questions will arise because of his contract situation. Will he get paid in New York? Will he get tagged? And then we won't know what his future will be after the tag. Will he get injured again? I don't know. That's kind of the point here. And the other thing I think as well, and this is a more subjective thing with the two of us, is a lot of people right now are viewing the running back landscape in Dynasty right now as like your top tier is 3 guys. It's Bijan, Jahmyr Gibbs, Breece Hall, however you really want to order it. I think there's a teardrop from Breece Hall and Jahmyr Gibbs in that top tier. You pick who you want. And then I think it is Breece Hall just because he is a year ahead of those guys. He has an ACL tear and he is like objectively on the worst offense. And I know Aaron Rodgers coming back is going to change that. How much? We don't really know. There's too many question marks for that offense, though, collectively, for me to really be ever comfortable taking him over Bijan or Jahmyr Gibbs, which makes the teardrop.
So if you can trade Breece Hall straight up for Puka, do it. The 102, you should take the 102. If you can down tier and get Jordan Love plus, do it. Jordan Love's going to be on a massive contract. If you can down tier to Kyler Murray plus, I'd rather have Kyler Murray than Breece Hall in Superflex
not even close.
Not even close.
Yeah, and this is something that we're going to consistently recommend to our supporters over at flockfantasy.com who we're doing two blueprints we're doing team blueprints for and customized roster analysis for all of them, which you can tell them about those blueprints and how they can get them.
Yeah, you can get a team blueprint right now, as well as our rookie draft guide for 2024, and get in the drawing for our listener leagues. Our first drawing is this Friday on our live stream. You want all of that and more? Use code DOMAIN when you sign up at flockfantasy.com/domain and choose the mother flocker tier. Like I said, you get a team blueprint, which is a personalized, thorough, in-depth evaluation of your Dynasty team and its future, and you get access to a bunch of other stuff, including our Discord community, including our DMs. So like I said, flockfantasy.com/domain. You've got the next guy here, DK Metcalf.
DK Metcalf. Look, we've notably been not high on DK Metcalf for a very long time. The physical talent's there. The NFL talent is there. He is a really great weapon for really anyone. And it's great that he's on the Seahawks. It's great that he can serve as that big body field stretcher who can, line up on the outside and get those deep balls and get those contested catch opportunities. And he's fast and he's big and he's strong and DK Metcalf. Yay. Like he's very fun to watch. That's really all I can say about him. I mean, outside of that, he really, to me, is just Terry McLaurin from a value perspective on a 3-year delay. We, as a Dynasty community, just continue to give him pass after pass after pass because we expect him to potentially be some elite, consistent wide receiver 1, and he's just not. Like, the guys that he's going around are people that actually have that upside, like a Jackson Smith and Jigba, like a T. Higgins, like a Zay Flowers, who is the wide receiver 1 in Baltimore's offense, like TJ Hawkinson. So to me, I just, why not take the guys that have a higher upside? Yeah, I know DK Metcalf is consistent. He has a nice floor, but it doesn't really matter to me.
So, I mean, unless you're playing in like a 14, 16 team league where like consistency actually matters a lot, then DK Metcalf isn't doing more for you than down tiering to TJ Hawkinson is. Because TJ Hawkinson in a tight end premium league is going to win you a league. DK Metcalf is not going to win you a league. DK Metcalf, 14 points per game in 2021, 13.5 points per game in 2022, 14 points per game. I mean, It's
the same. It's the same thing.
Look, like consistency's good, and I love consistency.
Yep.
But we're overvaluing this consistency just a little bit, just based on name brand. And in all honesty, you can get guys like Rashee Rice there, like you mentioned, TJ Hawkinson, Romo Dunze right now. So if you can get the 105 or 106 for DK Metcalf, the player you select there is going to have a much higher upside than DK Metcalf. And DK had plenty high upside when he came out of college. It's just what DK has become. He's a great NFL receiver. He's a better NFL receiver than he is a fantasy asset because from a fantasy perspective, he's consistently scoring, double digits, which is great. But in terms of like
consistently every other week, which is inconsistent.
Yeah.
Like he puts up 25 and then he puts up 5, which rounds out to about 14 points per game.
And with a new offensive system, We'll just have to see how it affects DK, but right now, like, still DK's value is at a point where you can go get Dalton Kincaid plus. You can get Jared Goff plus. I'd take Jared Goff over DK in Dynasty Superflex leagues pretty easily.
Yeah.
You can down tier and you can get somebody like Deebo Samuel plus. Deebo Samuel, a guy who's going to outscore DK Metcalf, have a higher ceiling than DK Metcalf, play on a better offense than DK Metcalf, and you can get at a significant discount. So I like those trades a lot. Again, insulating with draft picks is always a good idea, but with DK, it's nothing to do with his consistency. It's nothing to do with his play. He just is not. He's not a ceiling guy, and a lot of times when you're playing, especially in like 8 to 10 team leagues, you need ceiling plays, and DK is not that ceiling play. So again, it depends on what style league you play in, but DK for the most part is going to be somebody that we're going to be moving off of our teams. I don't own any DK. Do you own any shares?
0.
So between the two of us, we don't own any shares of DK. And Christian McCaffrey is another one I really don't own a lot of. I will say I do own some Christian McCaffrey on the teams last year that I thought were going to go bananas and win. And I mean, a couple of them did. But at the same time, Christian McCaffrey now, when you're looking at where he's valued, RB4 in Dynasty, approaching 28 years old. And it has less to do with his age, because a lot of people want to look at the age and be like, the age cliff, blah, blah, blah. And there is some valid data to that, but I don't think Christian McCaffrey is going to apply to that. Really,
he's a unicorn.
He is a unicorn.
I mean, he's just as much of a slot receiver as he is a running back.
And so when I'm looking at Christian McCaffrey's value, I just see him valued around a bunch of guys that are going to be just as good for the next 3 years from a value insulation standpoint. From a production standpoint, it's really hard to tell. It is worth noting that Christian McCaffrey has lost a fair amount of values from the middle of the season to now. He has, but he's still being valued around guys like Sam Laporta, who should be going in the second round of Dynasty Superflex drafts with tight end premium. Kyler Murray again, Chris Olave, anywhere from the 103 on. Like,
yeah, I was gonna say we've seen deals go down for CMC that involve the 103, and if that's the case, like, just take the 103, please.
Yeah,
it's as simple as that for me.
Yeah, I think it is too. I just think like there's almost zero chance that Christian McCaffrey is valued at this spot in Dynasty Superflex startup drafts next year. We saw this last year with Travis Kelce, and it's why I wasn't drafting Travis Kelce. Eckler. Because there does reach a point where it's like they're probably going to take the value slide this year, even if their production doesn't go down. Now, in Eckler's case, it did go down. That's why he's in the 11th round. With Kelce, his production went down, but he still was like the tight end 2. I mean, from a points per game perspective, I think he was close to tight end 1, and he slid into the 9th from the 2nd or 3rd. So it has little to do with Christian McCaffrey, the player, because he's obviously a cheat code for your fantasy team. But the fact that right now you could still get like the 103 for him tells me that you should make that move, because the 103 or who you select there will be more valuable than Christian McCaffrey at the end of the offseason. And that by default makes it a pretty good move to insulate the value on your team. So Christian McCaffrey, I can understand why you want to hold him, especially if your teammates don't value him. So if your league mates are like, yeah, he's not worth anything, and you can't get like a haul, if you can't get a haul, don't sell Christian McCaffrey. But that's conditional. So next guy. Oh boy.
So we are cheating with these rookies, involving them, before the actual NFL draft and landing spot. So there is an asterisk with these, but it's fun to, play with theoreticals, and there's going to be ifs and buts though. So please give us a little bit of a break here. I just want to get this conversation out there, because I do think the hype on Jaden Daniels, I know, has gone a little bit too far. It has gone from Jaden Daniels is 100% a consensus top 15 NFL rookie pick to absolutely 100% top 10 to absolutely 100% top 5. It's gotten a little rich for me, and I think the biggest reason why is because everyone's just assuming that the Anthony Richardson track of value is the Jaden Daniels track. I cannot.
So I have a question.
Give me a second.
I have a question for you.
Yeah.
Do you think if Jaden Daniels goes top 10 in the NFL draft, you think he's a top 14 QB in Dynasty?
I don't know who are the top 14 guys right now.
The guys that are close to him: Caleb Williams, Anthony Richardson, Jordan Love, Kyler Murray, Trevor Lawrence are in front of him, and then Drake May,
so
Brock
he's
Purdy,
QB 13
Dak
right
Prescott,
now,
and
ahead
Tua.
of Purdy.
Do you think if he goes top 10 in the NFL draft?
And that's the big if and but. If he goes top 10 and goes to a really nice landing spot, I think he's at least in the conversation, maybe. But to me, one, I have questions about him going top 10. 2, who are the guys going around him? Drake May back-to-back. Give me Drake May all day. If Drake May goes second overall, there are very few scenarios where I'm taking Jaden Daniels over Drake May. Very few.
I mean, there were scenarios where we're taking Anthony Richardson over C.J. Stroud.
Because
and Bryce Young.
we said if Anthony Richardson goes top 5, and we were very confident he would, we'd take him over C.J. Stroud.
So for Jaden Daniels is your
He'd
threshold,
have to go top five. He would have to go top 5. The NFL would have to say that I'm wrong.
So here's why I'm not selling Jaden Daniels is because I think right now is the worst time because he's going to work out this week, and I think he's going to have the Anthony Richardson effect at the combine.
Think he's going to crush? Do you think he's going to 100% blow the socks off of everybody at the combine and break records and do better than Anthony Richardson?
Not better than Anthony Richardson. I don't think you're going to see Anthony Richardson's records broken, but I do think he's going to. I mean, even though we know it's coming, people are still going to be like, "Oh wow, did you see Jaden Daniels at the combine?" And so even if it's not like deserved hype, the hype will be there. And so if you were ever going to sell Jaden Daniels,
maybe you don't have to sell Jaden Daniels today, but since the combine is this week and that's the conversation we're having, like we're going to be having this conversation in just a few days. And as Jaden Daniels inevitably increases in value, I think he becomes more and more of a sell. Like, because the talk and the assumption is always going to be rushing upside, landing spot, Anthony Richardson all over again. We're talking about a almost 24-year-old quarterback prospect as opposed to what was branded as a raw quarterback prospect in Anthony Richardson, who broke the combine, was athletically superior to everyone else in his class, more than we'd seen in over a decade. And Jaden Daniels is honestly just all of that light.
I think he does some things better than AR, right? Coming out of college, like if he's a better passer than AR coming out of college.
He's more of a. I don't even want to say experience, because when you watch the LSU film, the amount of NFL the amount of NFL reads that he was asked to make at LSU was actually not. It was not especially superior to Anthony Richardson and what he did at Florida. And that is factual. Like he is the amount of NFL plays that he was expected to make at LSU are much inferior to that of Drake May and Caleb Williams.
But you have to admit, I mean, Jaden Daniels
won the Heisman Trophy.
Was a far superior college player. If he does test out well at the combine,
and if college production was the end-all be-all, who would be the quarterback one in this year's class?
I know.
Michael Penix.
I know. But I'm just saying, I have a hard time selling Jaden Daniels until I see what the NFL thinks of him.
And to me, I have a hard time investing in a quarterback at his current price and what it will eventually be after the combine, which is higher and higher for a 24-year-old.
I think if he were top 10, I would say, yeah, I would be selling. But like, I mean, I feel like his value is about as insulated as it can get, because I don't think he slides to the top 15. Do you? You seriously, you have that many doubts?
I have my doubts.
Like from in terms of
it doesn't mean I think he's bad. I just don't. I mean, we're talking about Deshaun Watson was objectively a better prospect than Jaden Daniels was, and he didn't crack the top 10.
Yeah,
you know what I'm saying?
It was
to me, I think this is the time where we start getting tunnel vision with, like, we're so focused on this QB class that we stop looking at like grand scheme, grand scale, and like when you compare him to other prospects that were better than him going into the NFL. They went later than him. And yeah, there's going to be some exceptions because maybe the NFL learned their lessons with those guys. So now they look at Jaden Daniels, they take him a little bit earlier. Maybe there's more team need this year because the quarterback position is, so poor in the NFL right now from a quality perspective. I understand that. But the fact that I even have doubts about his price right now makes me not comfortable taking him at price for a guy that I would be counting on being a top 3 cornerstone asset for my dynasty team. Like, I'd rather invest that in Drake May. I honestly would rather invest that in Brock Purdy right now. I really would. So that's just where I'm at the moment.
Yeah.
It's good discussion to have because this is all theoretical, right? There's a lot of things that are going to really iron themselves out as we get through the combine and the NFL draft, but food for thought.
Yeah. He's going top 6 in every mock draft I'm seeing.
Yeah, and
I think if he goes there, like
mock drafts to me, we do mock drafts all the time, and we do these professional mock drafts. Like, let's be honest, how reliable are mock drafts? How reliable is Mel Kiper every single year? How reliable is Daniel Jeremiah? Like, we all at this point are just guessing, and we're all in a dark room with our eyes closed, with our hands tied behind our backs, because we're not in the team meetings. We're not with NFL teams that are doing the film evaluation and actually looking at these guys. The only thing is what we hear and what we think. And as dynasty people, we like offenses, so we just push every offensive player up boards and the guys with the rushing upside. So, yeah.
I could talk about this for a long time.
Yeah, I could too. We could have had a whole video about this.
Kenneth Walker is our next guy. Kenneth Walker is a guy.
This one's a lot easier for us.
Yeah, because I definitely agree with this one. I had a guy, one of our comments, like saying that we should take our L on the Charbonnet takes because Kenneth Walker, we said he hadn't looked too good, and it was just straight wrong. And then I was like, am I missing something? And I went and looked at Kenneth Walker and his PPR finishes and it says RB18 and RB19. I'm like, oh, that didn't seem too good. Like, I think we were right about that. And the fact of the matter is, Kenneth Walker hasn't been too good. And my only argument to that is, if Kenneth Walker was that good, why did they draft Charbonnet?
Yeah.
Why would they have done that?
Yep.
And it has nothing to do with Pete Carroll. It has nothing to do with he just likes Charbonnet. No, it has everything to do with the fact that Kenneth Walker does have some holes in his game. Now, Kenneth Walker, what's his upside? From a fantasy perspective, I do think he has some significant upside. I do think he's a guy that has big playability. I think he's a guy that is a serious red zone threat and seemed to get pretty much all of the red zone carries there when he was healthy. This year, 15 games, he averaged 13 points per game, though. Last year, he averaged 13 points per game. 13 and a half, both years. I mean, Kenneth Walker, is fine, but he's not great. Until he proves to us that he is going to be that guy who is hyper productive in fantasy. I mean, again, you're talking points per game. We normally use total points because we're like, yeah, points per game doesn't matter because you should be penalized for what you miss. I'll even compensate for the games he missed, and he's still averaging 13 points per game. I like Kenneth Walker, and I liked him coming out of college. But right now, let's look at what you can get from Kenneth Walker or for Kenneth Walker from a trade perspective, because I guarantee there's a lot of guys in his value range. I'd pretty
T. Higgins.
Yeah. Okay. Yes.
Mark Andrews,
Yes.
Dalton Kincaid, T.J. Hawkinson, basically the big three of tight ends there that are all being discounted.
So go get an
at the
elite
moment.
tight end.
Jared Goff, Saquon Barkley. My gosh, please.
So I don't.
Please.
Is age the only reason that that's happening?
Yeah, I think it's the uncertainty of Saquon's contract situation, and I think people are genuinely afraid that Saquon's going to be stuck in New York for the rest of his career, and that's just not ideal. We
Did
would
they
love to
tag
see.
him?
No, they haven't yet.
And they said they weren't going to, right?
I don't think they will. I think they
'Cause I
either
don't
sign
think
him and he
Jacobs got
takes a
tagged
deal,
either.
or he goes somewhere else.
But even in Walker's down year,
I'm sorry,
Barkley's down year,
Yeah.
16 points per game compared to 13 and a half.
I'd rather have James Cook because he has receiving upside.
I mean,
instead of Kenneth Walker. Easy.
Even James Cook, I'm curious. James Cook's points per game this last year, 13.7.
Which isn't anything to write home about, but it's
not,
better.
but the value difference between the two of them. Rashad White is significantly down the list here.
Yeah.
All I'm saying is I think you can get similar production profiles, similar upside, similar talent. Rashad White, 15.8 points per game.
Deebo Samuel, Jaden Reed, those are two wide receivers in a vacuum. I'm just straight up taking over Kenneth Walker.
So there you go. Kenneth Walker, until he shows us that he's an elite dynasty running back, we're going to treat him like he's a 13 and a half points per game. Right? I feel like that's fair, right?
And Brian Robinson is really the same caliber. And he's a lot cheaper. And I don't like Brian Robinson.
All right, let's put the nail in the coffin here. Brian Robinson this year, points per game, 13.2. I mean, it's right there with Kenneth Walker.
Yeah.
And Brian Robinson played on the Commanders.
Yeah.
So, okay. And played in 15 games, by the way. So, literally, they scored almost exactly the same amount of points.
Yes.
All right, last guy.
I'll let you take this one. Man.
No, I better take this one.
Yep.
This
your
one
guy.
is hilarious.
This is your favorite guy.
Look, I'm sure Isaiah Likely watches the show, loves us. I'm sure he's a great guy. But when I'm looking at dynasty rankings, I cannot help but laugh my butt off every time I see this. There are 32 teams in the NFL. All of those teams have a starting tight end. All of those teams also have a backup tight end. Naturally, you would think 20 to 25 of the tight end ones on teams would go, top 20, 25 in dynasty. But right there in the top 15 every single offseason is Isaiah Likely, who is the tight end 16 right now in dynasty. But not even the tight end 2 or not even the tight end 1 on his own team. He is not even at the top of the depth chart. You're telling me that there are only 15 guys you would start over Isaiah Likely in your tight end slot. You are actually telling me that with a straight face. Xavier Worthy? Are you kidding me? You have a receiver that could potentially go in the first round. Xavier Worthy? Oh my gosh. Marquise Brown?
Yes,
receiver that scores points.
Yes.
Nick Chubb,
Yes.
a guy that's going to score a lot of points as he comes back.
How is Pat Fryermuth less valuable than Isaiah Likely? And we don't even
We don't even like
Pat
Freiermuth, but he starts
every single week.
Aaron Jones is down there. Derrick Henry. Dallas Goedert's way down there.
Way. Jacoby Myers, a wide receiver 2 last
Hold
year
on.
with Aiden O'Connell.
Geno Smith. If you can, if you can look at it, I want you to get in the comments. If you can actually give me a reason why Isaiah Likely should be valued over Pat Freiermuth,
We will listen.
I'll have you on.
We'll
I'll
listen
have you
at
on the
least.
show.
Yeah.
I'll fly you to Indy. You can be on the show.
Yeah.
And the Kenny Pickett answer doesn't count because he's not going to be the quarterback there next year.
Yes, correct.
But this one's just get what you can. Like any value adjacent. My gosh, guys, that one never will make sense to me. Ever.
No.
All right. Make sure you drop a like on the video. Make sure you subscribe if you play Dynasty Fantasy Football. Some tough discussion to be had today. But ultimately, we got to do what's right for our Dynasty teams.
We're trying to help you guys.
We are trying to help you. Head over to flockfantasy.com/ let us know who won the Jaden Daniels argument between me and
Yeah,
Nathan.
I'm like legitimately interested in that.
I am too.
because, you know, it's an aggressive one, but also at the same time, like I do have actual questions. So
Yeah, I do too. All right, flockfantasy.com/domain. Get a blueprint. Get everything else. Appreciate you guys. See you later.